Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back to this month's Fearless Fridays interview. I'm here with Tee Twyford, and Tee and I met, oh gosh, I can't now remember the year. Was it 2016, I want to say, some years ago, when I was
Definitely at least 16.
consulting at Burberry as one of my first jobs after leaving my job, in fact. And you've since done the same. So really excited to dig into your decision process. And I know you're doing amazing things now, so really looking forward to hearing more about that as well. So why don't you start by telling us briefly what were you doing before and what are you doing today?
Thanks, Anna. So we met obviously at Burberry. I was in the digital marketing team working on beauty with you in the beauty team on a digital perspective. So my more recent background has been in digital marketing, social media. Before that, I'm from New Zealand. You can probably hear that in the accent. I used to work in online magazines. And yeah, 3-4 years ago, I took the leap and started my own business, Hustle and Hush, which took some of the essence of what I love doing more and more and more in my roles. And so I work with millennial leaders to empower them to bring out the best in themselves and those around them.
Amazing. So already so many questions on that. I feel like it must have been before 2016 now. I'm thinking that's too recent. So it's longer ago we worked together. And yeah, the fact that you've already in business 3-4 years is fantastic. So, but if we double click, as they say in the digital space, on that decision, I guess, what was it after those years, having moved through different areas, specialized in digital, what was it that made you break free and start that something that's quite different really in a way?
Yeah, I think different in some perspectives, but a lot of what I do on a daily basis, I think really pulls and has similarities in what I was doing in those roles when I was working in some of the bigger brands. The big decision moment happened when I was sat on that beach there, which is why I have it up in my office to remember what that felt like. And I remember sitting there, I'd gone away for a long weekend, remember when we could do that, down to Cornwall, and it was just, I don't know, just something. Like I said, I'm from New Zealand. The coast means so much to me, and sat on the beach that day. It was sort of, I think, February or March, so quite blowy and blustery, and it kind of blew all the cobwebs and the noise out. And I suddenly had this clarity about what I would want my ideal day to look like. And that was the time for me that I was able to crystallize and say it didn't have to fit into a cookie cutter answer anymore. I wanted to be, in an ideal day, coaching some clients one-on-one. I might be doing something like this, a podcast. I might be working on some articles that I'd been writing. I'm working on some educational content at the moment that kind of pulls on workshops I've been doing. So I wanted to be doing a real mixture of things. And what I love is that that's what I'm now kind of doing. So I guess I've just flipped it, and the focus now is I'm a leadership coach, and that's the essence of what I do. But I would say there's a lot of common themes in terms of creating content, empowering others, etc., that kind of flow through from, weirdly, a kind of background in corporate digital and social marketing for luxury brands.
And I love that. Obviously, I came from a sort of similar-ish background in the sense of beauty, luxury, and corporate and so on. And I speak to so many clients recently who really doubt themselves. They say, "Oh, but how could I possibly do something else? I just can't imagine. And I've got this really narrow set of expertise," and that's not the case at all. And in fact, any business owner now, entrepreneur, needs to be able to do those things, right? Creating content and digital marketing and so on. In fact, so if that is your background, that you're ideally set up, I think, for running your own business, albeit in a different capacity than working in a big corporate machine.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So that's inspiring. And so that all sounds very simple and organic and successful. So what challenges have you had along the way? What were there any sort of pitfalls that you've learned from, and what have you had to deal with along the journey?
I think some of the more challenging bits relate to almost getting up to that point where, like you said, it felt so clear, and I could see the result of the work that I'd done today. I'd worked with an amazing coach who really helped me get clear on what my purpose was, and I can come back to that again and again and again, that piece on helping others bring out the best in themselves. I talked about it a lot with friends. I'd done so much to get there. I think a lot of the challenges had come leading up to that point. One of the biggest things I spent a lot of time doing was trying to think about what I was going to call my business, despite advice from a friend that said, don't worry about a logo or a business name. The most important thing you need is a client, a paying client. But yeah, I spent a lot of time on the floor down here trying to think, like, what was I going to call it? So I think when you trade that kind of corporate identity and you go from I'm T and I work for these amazing brands doing these amazing things, you can feel a bit naked, even though you're trying to be able to have that internal validation and know what lights you up and drives you. There was something nice about having the identity of the business to kind of be a part of. So I think that's also why I enjoyed the process of the name.
That's an interesting insight, because it is hard for people to sort of sell yourself and get comfortable with that, and not, and as you've been sharing recently on LinkedIn, not sort of be braggy and showing off and so on. So that's a really interesting thing. I hadn't thought about that. Not hiding behind a brand name, but having that. It's sort of, I like saying that too. We are one step outside, and it's maybe me and a couple of freelancers, but I feel like it's then our team and it's our message as a sort of business. And that's a really, that's a powerful way. So if people are listening and feeling a bit naked behind their own name, that's quite a good little hack there to come up with the name. And the name is so good. And again, the last few months I've been looking a lot at work-life integration and sort of the anti-hustle. And of course, there's the two extremes. There is sort of the extreme hustle. No, these wishy-washy people who are just like hippie and not working hard don't understand. And then you've got the people who are, I guess, going too far and they're, no, just go with the flow. And that's why I love the combination that, yes, you need to work hard, but you also need the hustle and the hush. So well done on the floor there in your office for coming up with that name.
Well, thanks. And I think it came from a point of sitting here on the floor and really channeling that. I had a number of amazing brand strategy ideation guides I was trying to follow at the time, and I just took a step back and thought, yeah, hustle is something that means so much to me. I think, like you said, there's a lot of fetishization of hustle, but also a lot of demonization of it. I know it's a part of me that's such a strong kind of part of the success I've seen to date, and I know it will continue to be there. But I'm, in the way that I was creating a life for myself, part of the joy of being my own boss was that I got to reset the rules, as it were, and I wanted to have a counterbalance to that hustle energy, which is kind of where hush came in.
And so what would you say has helped you? And in fact, you already mentioned the coach. Did you know about coaching before? And in fact, then you became a coach yourself in a way. So how did you know where to get the help, I guess? Because that's often, I certainly didn't know very much about coaches when I was in my corporate world. So how do you know where to look for help?
Yeah, good question. I think I mean, you can see that's a small selection of the books.
Color-coded books. I love it. The whole setup is perfect.
I love a good book. I love a good podcast. I don't think they were as prolific at the time, but I definitely kind of seek inspiration externally. And for me, the coach was about allowing my own internal perspective to come to the fore a bit. And also, I mean, I talked ad nauseum with friends and family about this. And I think, again, a coach offers you that unbiased perspective, the space that's held just for you, that they don't bring any of their own bias to the table. And for me, a friend had mentioned that she'd had a really interesting experience with a coach. And I thought, I wonder if that would be helpful. And so reached out to a few people and looked for some referrals to see if they, and I remember I dug back into the emails I'd sent out to people recently, and it was sort of language I was using, like, I want to find a way back to me. I want to know, to the point before, I want to know how to balance that really ambitious side of myself with, the other parts of me that I know are there. So yeah, a coach, my coach Wendy was amazing. But yeah, also kind of, I think my husband's been amazing and supportive. I'd always had a vision, a dream. I'm a Kiwi, we're very entrepreneurial people. I'd always dreamed of doing my own thing. And I thought maybe I'd do that when I moved home to New Zealand at some point in the future. It's always, when I was thinking about what next, and he just said, why not now? Why not here? Which I think is a good question for all of us, especially at the moment. Why not now? Why not here? Why not you? Why couldn't it be you that did this?
Really powerful questions that we could almost leave it there as the end of the interview. But and I love that this sort of I'll do it when is always a bit of a fallacy, isn't it? I'll do it when I've moved back there. Maybe, who knows when you'll move back. And I like that you found a little home sort of in Cornwall and felt the spiritual sort of connection with the New Zealand beaches and oceans as well. What would you say, apart from your very beautiful office setup, but what would you say is the best part of your work and lifestyle these days?
Well, the best bit about this office is I now share it with my husband because of the current climate. He's usually sat in what was my desk, and I now get to look out at the garden, which is amazing. I think lifestyle is definitely a big part of it. It means that we are both super present with our son, which has been wonderful. I think those 6 or 7 years ago, I couldn't really have imagined how I would have been able to juggle all of that. It's not easy, but the autonomy I think that you get as your own boss is amazing. And I still have to remind myself that to check in, to reflect on how things are going, and that I have the ability to make the changes to make it better. It's funny how we can still get caught in traps that we're actually able to remedy ourselves. So I think constantly being able to check in and tinker is pretty powerful as well.
And remembering that you have ownership over that, right? Because it's so true. I've found myself recently getting more into my comfort zone again, as much as I've been get out of a comfort zone, adventure, and I feel bad about having this paddleboarding thing. 'Cause it's been so long since I did anything like that. I was thinking, oh, I should maybe replace my inspirational imagery. But it's true that you do need to keep checking in and seeing, is that still my vision? And you also mentioned having that really clear purpose that you developed with your coach. So I imagine coming back to that and reminding yourself why you're doing this and for your family and so on really helps you to sort of stay on course.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what advice might you give to someone who, like you, maybe is entrepreneurial by their genes, but maybe not, and you know, maybe has considered it and is looking out and thinking that sounds amazing? Well, how do they get started? Anything you wish you had known? What advice would you give?
I think keep exploring it. Listen, find ways to listen to that voice inside you. I would say talking to friends and family can be amazing, and you can uncover advice from them that can be really powerful. I think one example was a friend who'd mentioned that I think we often think it's binary, that we have to leave behind everything and start afresh. And she was like, it doesn't have to be that dramatic, Tee. Like, you know, and she staggered down her working for her previous employer 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day a week. And I remember thinking, I mean, that's impossible. That could never happen. And that's exactly what happened. I was able to stagger down by having a really supportive employer who wanted to, you know, help me get there. So I think don't make assumptions and allow other people's advice to come into the fold, but also find that space, whether it's with a coach or kind of a peer support circle or somewhere that you can get some space for you to be able to get really clear on what that purpose is. And like on the beach, let the noise go away so you're able to kind of take forward and make that first step out.
That is interesting, and that's so fortunate that you had that opportunity to go down gradually. And again, I know some people have been able to do that, and others you've had to go just at some point. No, you know, boss says no, there's no understanding, and I just have to go. So that's good, as you said. Listen to what other people say, listen to their experiences, but ultimately your experience is going to be quite individual, isn't it? So you need to also work out what's best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think for me, I would never have thought to ask that, and I would have said up to the point where they suggested it, that it would never have been an option. So I think that in as much itself, the essence of that particular bit of advice is also what are the assumptions that you've made and the blocks that might be getting in your way that could actually move away and make it possible.
And asking the question, right? They can only say no, I suppose. So at least you ask. Let them say no rather than assuming the no is there before you even ask the question. And let's in the final few minutes, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about hustle and hush. So obviously millennials, big sort of trendy word for a long time, but I know what you're doing is really meaningful and powerful. So tell us a bit more about what it is, how you found your purpose, and how you're now helping these millennial leaders do the same.
Yeah. So I mean, millennials is absolutely a bit of a buzzword. I think anyone that isn't a millennial thinks that it's not the right word to use. When I talk to most of my clients who are in their late 20s to early 30s, it's a word that or kind of late 30s even, that we identify quite strongly with. We know that it relates to us. And I think it's as much that it is a time in our lives when we're able to be making those big decisions about, you know, whether we're staying in a corporate or, you know, another business role. and we're looking around us and seeing, I don't know, is that the leadership that I want to emulate myself? How do I go about being the leader that I've always wanted to be? That is an amazing place to be a coach and support someone as they're exploring that kind of growth edge about where they could be and what they could become as a leader. And equally, if someone's having those questions like we've been talking about today of, yeah, I've been on this really ambitious path my whole life. I've been told I could do anything I want to do. Suddenly I'm pulling up and thinking, is this what I want to do? I mean, I can do it and I can do it well and I could keep doing it. But actually, there's something else. There's something more for me here that lights me up. Again, I think that's such an amazing space to be in with someone as they're really kind of starting to listen to that voice inside that helps them discover. And I think having been lucky enough to be on those journeys myself, it really lights me up to be privileged to be with someone as they're going through it as well.
Amazing. And if someone is, which I'm sure they are, going through that and would like to hear more, how can they find out more about Hustle and Hush and how to work with you?
Well, I would love to engage with you on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I put out some content like you were mentioning earlier. Thank you. I love that kind of old journalist background in me. Loves to create articles, pulling in experts from lots of different fields. So that's a good way to get a flavour for a bit of me and what really is resonating with other kind of clients at the moment. It's often questions that come up in sessions or groups. And if not, my website, hustleandhush.com, gives you a good flavour of everything that I'm working with people on at the moment, from workshops to peer mentoring circles, group coaching programs, and one-on-one coaching as well.
Amazing. So I'll link to all of that as well. Thank you so much, Tee, for your time. I'm really glad I got to you and excited to be able to share your story. And I'm sure, again, there will be lots of overlap. And I love your message as well. So really, everybody do follow Tee on Instagram and connect with her if this sounds, which I'm sure it does, important and powerful for you. So thank you so much, Tee, and congratulations as well on the journey, and excited to see where it takes you, whether back to New Zealand or not. Hopefully you can still enjoy our oceans as well, and you know, COVID notwithstanding and so on. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tee.
Lovely, Anna. Thank you very much.